Let's talk about how to play games to master trading. And one of the games I want to introduce you to is the game of resource management. And resource management in a layman's term is how to properly manage resources to solve the problems of your group. And this is something that most people are not tasked with because based on the way things work in this particular society that we live in, we've been conditioned to believe that we don't have to manage resources on behalf of our group because somebody else will do it for us. The challenge is when they don't do it correctly, we get upset, but then therefore we don't know how to take our power back because we don't know how to manage resources correctly or on behalf of our group to put ourselves in the best position to be successful. And a lot of it has to do with our condition, our socialization. So here's a game that I want to introduce you to in which you can manage resources and you can practice managing resources and learn how do I make decisions over and over and over and over again from a resource management standpoint to solve problems. And it's a really simple game. It's available through a platform called Steam, but I don't play it there. I play it online on this particular platform that kind of gives you like a truncated, a mini version of the game. And with this particular game, what you do is your job is to manage transportation resources, right? So you have like the tube system in London. And what you're supposed to do is keep building out tube stations and keep placing trains on tube station tracks or lines. And your job is to continue to pick up people, transport them to the right place correctly, and do it over and over again as population starts to increase on your lines. And if you're not able to do that successfully, the game ends. And what you'll find out is you have to keep making decisions on where to place lines, how to compose lines, what areas do I need to go through, and you'll learn over time how to manage resources properly to move people as fast as possible through different areas. You'll learn things like circular tracks move faster than tracks with sharp bends. You learn that you have to have the ability to put lines through bodies of water, which is weird because it's underground, but on this game, you have to have the ability to build a tunnel right through bodies of water. Then you got to now start maybe adding interchanges or adding more lines. But what you're tasked to do is you have to keep building out lines to move people based on the amount of people that need to be moved. Then every shape correlates to that station. So if I have a circle station, but I have triangles, they're trying to be moved to a triangle station. If I have a square, but I have circles, they're trying to be moved to a circle station. So that's your job, is to go to that particular shape and then move those other shapes to those correlating stations. Then as you get farther and farther to the game, you'll start getting special shapes. But the game never stops. It's just the population continues to increase. The population continues to increase. And the game is over when the population overwhelms your ability to transport them. When you start moving too slow or you don't have the capacity, those situations, that station will build up to a point, and then that's how the game ends. But this is a game that allows you to do what? Learn how to manage resources to solve problems. And this is something that a lot of people are not familiar with doing. Now, how does this make you a better trader? Because as a trader, you're trying to manage resources to solve a problem. And many people struggle because what we've been taught to do is just use our money to make ourselves feel better all the time. And then when we now have to start taking resources to manage problems is where we start to struggle because we think our only problem is how do I make myself feel better, right? And that's why if many people were told, hey, I'm gonna give you $10 million and your job is to manage the resources in this particular area, we wouldn't know where to start. Why? Because we have not been trained how to do that. This is why I tell a lot of people that go through my program, you need to start seeing yourself as a manager of capital, right? See yourself as a capital manager on behalf of your group. And you may have never been taught to think of yourself that way. And then you may not work a job in which you're tasked with managing capital on behalf of that particular institution. And then you can get out of just trying to get this emotional dopamine hit from a trade once you start seeing yourself as a capital manager on behalf of your group. And that's something that this particular game can help you with. Now, it's not the cartoon character games. It's not the games where you run around and act like you shoot people all day, like killing somebody doesn't mean anything. It's not those kind of games. It's A game in which you're going to have to make decision after decision after decision after decision to understand how to properly manage resources on behalf of your group. Now, what we're going to do in the next part of this video is I'm going to show you some real world applications of being able to think on this particular level. Resource management and a not so great example of resource management. So let's start with the bad first, and we'll end off with the good. And you ask yourself, well, why am I paying attention to this? And it's my belief that once you kind of understand how to manage resources better, and you don't as much have a personal emotion attached to your resource management, it will make you a better trader, because in the real world, people are making decisions every day around resource management. And for you to maybe start to understand why certain things are or are not offered in your particular area, it may just come to a resource management decision. And this is why really getting into this space can be so exciting and it can be so transformational, is because you get exposed to processes and decisions that normally you've never been made to make in your day-to-day life. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now we're looking at the Orlando area. Now, if you look at Orlando, and we were talking about resource management in the area, or from the perspective of understanding how to travel and move people. And if you look at Orlando, and one of the things in which growing up in Orlando was always a challenge, is that it's never been really easy to travel the city using highways. And one of the reasons is because I-4, which is the interstate, it goes directly through the middle of the city, but it doesn't really take you anywhere unless you need to go north or south, right? And that's one of the challenges with Orlando. So growing up, I-4 doesn't take you anywhere unless you need to go north or south. And when I was growing up, we really wouldn't get on I-4, is because we used to call it a parking lot, because the traffic jams were so bad, you would get on I-4 and you really wouldn't move. So growing up, I learned how to travel Orlando, taking a bunch of residential roads, a lot of back roads, a lot of roads people didn't know about. And I never really traveled the highway. And then when I moved to a bigger city that used highways to travel, I had to learn to drive around using the highway because it wasn't something I was used to. I'm living in Orlando, right? So let's say hypothetically, and I live around the Lake Nona area, which is around here southeast of the airport. So this is like the new up and coming part of Orlando. And I want to go visit somebody that lives over here in Windermere, which is not officially Orlando, but it's Metro Orlando. It's not actually the city. The question is, how do I get there, right? What's going to be the easiest way for me to get there? And one of the challenges is that because Orlando does not have what I would call a circular highway. If you look at a lot of cities inside the United States, they have some form of a circular highway that essentially circles the whole city to move people around the city. Orlando doesn't have that. Therefore, if I'm over here in the Lake Nona area, I want to take a lunch over here in Windermere, I got to maybe jump on the 417, which I believe was a toll road, maybe take the 417 to the 528, which is the turnpike, then take the turnpike and then get off here over here in West Orlando and then drive to Windermere, right? That's a lot of jumping on road to road to road. Or maybe I could take the 417 all the way down to I-4, then take I-4 up north, get off here around Tangelo, and then drive residential into Windermere. Or maybe I could take the 417 to the 408, then take the 408 all the way west over here to Gotha to get off in Windermere. But there's not an easy way for me to connect to get over here. Same thing if I want to get to the Pond Hills area and I'm all the way southeast. How do I get there? It's very difficult Because what you have in Orlando is a lot of different roads. None of them are really all connected. So you got to end up jumping from road to road to road to road. And one of the things is you really, really got to know the roads in Orlando. Now, one of the benefits of Orlando is everything is pretty much going north, south, east, west that are not the actual highways. Therefore, if you get on the road and you understand how things connect, it's easy to know what next road you have to get on, because most of the actual roads in Orlando are running north or south or east, west. But because of the way the city's been built, there is not a way to really commute people all around the city using something that's very, very efficient, and you don't have to continue to jump on multiple highways. There's also not highways or highways coming directly into the city outside of I-4. All of these are state roads. So 408 is a toll that takes you east to west. Then you have Colonial Drive, which is a state road. That's what we used to always take before they built the toll. Then you have 441. You have 423, which is John Young Parkway. Then you have State Road 441, which some people know as OBT. That also takes you north and south directly through the city. But these are residential roads with stoplights. Therefore, if you're up here in Apopka and you get on 441 to go downtown, it can take you an hour based on traffic and stoplight. What you would have to do is travel all the way east to try to get on I-4 to drive strictly into downtown. There's not a highway to take you from Apopka all the way into downtown where you just can ride a highway, or there's not also a toll road. And I think as Lakeland, let me show you Lakeland right here, starts to build out. Lakeland is undergoing a boom right now, the Polk County area. One of the biggest challenges they're going to have is how to move people around this area. Why? Because they don't have anything, right? You have I-4, you got 570, and you got 92, and that's pretty much it. And they haven't prepared for the population increase. Therefore, now they're going to be playing catch-up ball. Where are they going to get the funding from? It takes a long time to build out these highways and byways. And that's going to be an issue because they've exploded in growth over the past 2 years because of the pandemic. And it's going to be very difficult to move people around. And what you're going to see is that I-4 and 92 are going to pick up a lot of that traffic. And they're really not used to picking up that traffic in this area. And I think a lot of people moving into that area are going to find out it's really difficult to travel around the Polk County area because it really was not built to handle a lot of people. Now, let me show you an example of really, really good resource management from a transportation standpoint. And this is people that really understood to build early for the population that's coming, as opposed to waiting until the population comes and then start trying to figure out how to build. And that is a aspect of resource management, is being prepared for something that you believe is coming. So let's look at the Houston area map, right? So this is Houston. So now what do we see early on? So let's zoom out, and all you see is circular highways. And to me, this is really the best way to travel, people, right? You just keep building multiple circular highways, right? And it's almost like a grid. So if you look at Houston from the 30,000 foot view, the bird's eye view, you're going to just keep seeing more and more circular highways, or half circle highways, semicircle highways. But they're going to keep repeating that pattern over and over again. And one of the things if you see is that you see the old 610. So that takes you around the immediate area downtown. Then if you look at that, you got 45 coming into the city. You got 69 on the north side coming into the city. You got 10 going directly through the city from east-west. Then 45 goes in through the city and comes back out. So it goes in the city pretty much due north, and then it goes back out southeast. You have 69 going through the city due north, and it comes back out southwest, right? Then you got 290 that goes out, what is that going to be, northwest, northwest out of the city, going out to Cypress, Jersey Village. You got 90 going out northeast. Then you have 35 going directly out south to Pearland. Then that's the first, like, those highways bring you in. They also bring you back out. Then now you have the Sam Houston, right, which is a toll road that circles, right, the larger part of the metro. And so everybody that lives in between 610 and the Sam Houston can now either decide to take, if I want to drive all the way to the 610, or if I want to go farther out, I can now take the Sam Houston to get to another part of the city, right? So I took the Sam Houston to get to Bush because of where I lived in the city, because I live outside of the Sam Houston. So to me, it didn't make sense to drive all the way into downtown and drive north. I just took the Sam Houston all the way around the city to get to Bush, which is north of the metro, right? So you have the Sam Houston, and that's just one real big circle all the way around the city. Now it's a toll road, so you got to pay to be on it, but you do have the ability to move around the city, to move around the farther part, the greater metro area, and not have to be worried about traffic lights. And it's really a well-maintained road because one, it's a toll road and there's not a lot of traffic on it. There's decent traffic, but it's not a lot. And also based on what part of the Sam Houston you're on, you can find that the income levels of the people are higher based on what part of the Sam Houston that you're traveling, but that's a different conversation. Now, once we get outside that Sam Houston loop, right, to continue to build out for more traffic, we have something called the Grand Parkway, right? So that's not looking at Highway 6. We'll get back to that later. We got 99, which is the Grand Parkway. The Grand Parkway even goes farther out. And that takes you all the way from the Sugar Land area, all the way around the city and stops over here in Baytown. So what are they planning for? They plan for even more growth. So in between the Sam Houston, which is 8, and the Grand Parkway, you can have even more growth. And if you get on the Grand Parkway, especially on the north side, the road is brand new. Why? Because nobody's driving it, because nobody really lives out there. These are brand new highways, but they've already built it. So they're 2 lanes now, but because of the room out there, over time, they can easily expand to 3 lanes, easily expand to 4 lanes. And now because of that, you can build on both sides of the Grand Parkway. You can build on this side and you can also build on this side. Why? Because if I'm living out here in Plum Grove, I got the 69 and I also got the Grand Parkway. So I can take the 69 to the Grand Parkway, connect that to 45, and then come right into the city or go right to the airport. Because the airport is right around this area here, a little bit north of the Sam Houston. And this has been really well managed. You got to give them credit. Houston got about 7 million people in the metro. By 2030, they'll probably have around 10 million people in the metro. They have the roads and they have the land to manage that. And this is just an example of resource management. And they're already ready for the growth because you got people living way out here in Cypress, which I don't know why, but that's where people want to live. But you have access to different parts of the city. Now, you got to be willing to drive. You got to be willing to sit in your car. But what you're not faced with is I got to jump on this state road. I got to jump on this, this state road with a bunch of lights. And so now to drive 20 miles to maybe get somewhere, it'll take me an hour and a half because of traffic and everybody being jammed up on the state road. You have access. You also have a lot of toll access. So like the people that live up in the Woodlands, they have the money to take the Hardy toll. So instead of them having to take 45 and deal with maybe the traffic on 45, you just pay, take the Hardy toll. It takes you right up into the city, right? There's also that here, right outside of Sugar Land. Where is it at? There's another toll. You got the Fort Bend Parkway toll. So if you're out here in the Sugar Land, Missouri City area, and you want to get close into the city, you can take this right here and it'll take you all the way to Highway 90. And that's what I want you to understand is that they've done a really good job of resource management. So similar to the game that we just talked about. If you were a civil engineer in Houston or you're over their transportation, I don't know who manages that because I know it's a combination with the DOT because they got a lot of federal highways. How do you manage the resources that it's going to take to move people? How do we deal with increases in population in one area where they may need more highways and byways than another area? Do we use public money to build it? Or do we reach out to a private firm and ask them, will they be willing to build a toll? And then we give them access to build that toll on our property, but it's their responsibility to maintain that particular roadway. And these are the things that you want to start asking yourself, right? Because most times we're not made outside of our own personal income. We're not made to make a resource management decision. Then when we go into the trading space and all you're doing is managing resources, right? And it's not as emotional. It's not the same type of emotion where I'm going to buy this object because I think it's going to give me personal satisfaction. And we may often struggle because in our day-to-day life and in our job, we're not tasked to manage resources. Most people do a job they're never asked to look at a budget and determine where they're going to outlay funds based on the budget. It's not something they're asked to do. And one of the things that helped me is that because I used to be a media buyer, I was making decisions with other people's money to run campaigns. So I really understood how to best utilize management of resources because it was somebody else's money that I was using, and I wanted to make sure I was getting the best results for their money. And it really helped me understand the power of learning how to make correct decisions from a resource management standpoint. So that's why I wanted to introduce that game to you, because I think that it can help you having to make those decisions over and over again, and understanding that there is no winning the game. It's just you keep managing resources until either you run out of resources or the situation overwhelms you. Hope you got some value from it. David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.